Hey, thanks for joining us right here on the Arkansas Weather Roundup. I'm Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert alongside Noah Simmons. We've got meteorologist Danny Cassidy as well as Joshua Weisel on standby to talk all things weather, past, present, and future. Noah, you're a snow lover.
I am, yes.
We've not had hardly any, aside from a little bit of a dusting thus far.
Right.
How you feeling? It's your first winter here in Arkansas. I know you're deep into the data.
Right.
You're looking for a reason to have hope. Have you
Right.
found any at all?
Not in the next 7 days. Again, we've been, and I knew this moving here, obviously a little bit less snow compared to, my home state of Missouri.
Sure.
But I mean, we haven't gotten anything.
Nothing.
I mean, Little Rock, still waiting on its first measurable snowfall. Fort Smith still, Fayetteville, I think pretty much everywhere in the state, is still, waiting on their first measurable snowfall. Some areas have gotten flurries, gotten a trace, maybe a dusting here or there, but in terms of stuff that maybe gets you excited and gets the people tuning in, we just haven't seen that so far.
I think of the big weather story this week. It's been the abnormally warm temperatures, but now winter is here.
Yes.
And it's here in a big way, and it may very well stay for, well, several days. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see what the Mother Nature has to throw our way. Noah, what do you do? What do you say? Let's dive into some. We're going to call this the 500 millibar chart. This is some nerdy data right here. Noah, what this is showing us, that big trough right there, really arrived the middle part of this week. And here in Arkansas and even Oklahoma to some extent, we're kind of on that western periphery.
Right.
Which means we really don't get the coldest of the cold air.
Sure.
But relatively speaking, it's significantly colder. Interestingly enough about this one, Noah, and you'll recall, everyone at home is going to recall, we've had these cold snaps before. This same setup could have been shown at least 2 or 3 times this winter, where that big trough sends us a shot of cold air, but it's all it is just a quick shot, and then the jet stream lifts back up towards the north, and we're warm all over again. I want to show you this. Now, this is, interestingly enough, Noah, I've not looked at this.
Okay.
So this is some analysis in real time, right?
Yep.
I was going to walk through this step by step and kind of get an idea of what's happening. So there's that first shot going into Thursday, Friday of this week. That jet stream kind of starts to flatten out a little bit, but when I look up towards Danny's neck of the woods, up in Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, I'm seeing another surge of that cold air dipping south. You see those blues? It's like a lobe just getting kind of pinched off. There it comes. That's that reinforcing shot of cold air that the forecast models have been pretty consistently showing that arrives Friday into Saturday, which Noah would tell us what going into the weekend.
We'd be getting a lot more colder air. And the interesting thing is, so far the first half of the winter, we've gotten, these little cold stretches, but they've only lasted, kind of like you alluded to, Scott, only a couple days. And then again, it kind of gets warmer. The jet stream kind of retreats back northward. I think as we work our way to the end of this week, and especially this weekend, looks like the cold sticks around for more than just a couple of days. And we're probably going to be getting, potentially, I think I'm confident saying this, maybe our coldest temperature, especially in the morning so far that we've seen this winter. I can't recall the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I think the coldest air we've seen, has only been, teens for low temperatures. So I'm going to have to fact check me on that. But again, I haven't really, double checked. But overall, we just haven't seen, the brunt of the cold so far this winter. We might get a little taste of that this weekend.
So I'm curious. This is Sunday. I've not looked out into next week. What do you think we're going to find? Let's just look. Okay, so I see us going, it looks like that next surge of cold air on Monday.
Right.
That impacts the Great Lakes region. How far south is that going to go? Looks like that's going to be more of a New England issue for us, but we're still kind of seeing some cold air. I jumped way ahead. This is early next week, backing it up. Now we're looking at middle part of next week. There it's happening again. We've still got some cold air in place, but it's kind of retreating. That jet stream's becoming what we call zonal, more west to east instead of really amplified. But, okay, this is now next Thursday. This is getting interesting.
It is.
I'm seeing a trough of low pressure that's developing maybe across the Pacific Northwest, the Rockies. That has my attention. That's digging south. Have you seen this already?
I have.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I'm
really, this is really interesting to me, but you've already seen this. Okay, so this would be late next week. Surge of cold air diving south, impacting not just the eastern third of the country, which is what we've seen this week, and it's going to be the case this weekend, but maybe that impacts a lot more of the country, including right here in Arkansas. That's the end of the model run. Can't go any further than that. That's a pattern to watch.
It is. Yeah, that's definitely a pattern that's maybe a little bit more favorable favorable for, I don't want to say snow, but really rain in general. And I know
Yeah.
the state could really use it because obviously we're seeing some of those drought conditions right now.
Speaking of that, let's go to that drought monitor and see just how bad it is.
Right.
My goodness, statewide, everybody is literally under some level of a drought. That burnt orange color is a level 2, or what they call a severe drought. Worst impacts of that, it's clear in north central, northeast Arkansas, but even parts of Benton and Delaware counties kind of seeing that severe drought. Elsewhere, it's bad. You need some rain. There have been some showers even this week across south and southeast Arkansas. So I suspect when the latest update comes out, it may change a little bit, but even with the amount of rain that we did see, I don't think it's going to be enough to really erase any of this.
No, yeah, I'm very skeptical on if we can really erase, especially because, we get a little bit of rain here and there, across the state over the last several days, but we need more than just, a couple tenths of an inch. We need more than just a few 100ths of an inch. And, with that drought monitor, the new one's going to update. They update every Thursday. They take into account the rain that fell leading up to that Tuesday, just a couple days prior. So, it doesn't look too hopeful. But again, it's looking like the drought conditions are probably going to persist for the next several weeks, probably.
I had a professor that said something that has stuck with me over the years. Drought breeds drought. Once you're in a drought, it's really hard to dig yourself out of. It takes good, soaking, meaningful rains. And when you look at the next 7 days, I think it's clear to us, Noah, that we're not going to really see that anytime soon. That's the state or the countrywide perspective of 7-day rainfall projections. Number one that sticks out to me is it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of precipitation in general.
Right.
You see a lot of green, but when you look at the scale, that's a half inch or less across most of the country. You come into Arkansas, and honestly, rainfall projections would show that a lot of us are going to be really dry in the days to come.
Right, yeah, the upper level atmosphere pattern just doesn't really support, especially with all the cold shots we're getting from Canada. That's a dry air mass to begin with.
Right.
In, the month of January. And, if you get a favorable storm track, it misses us well to the northeast. That's why you kind of see some of those higher precipitation totals in parts of the Great Lakes and the Appalachian Mountains. Whereas, you go pretty much west of the Mississippi River or just, west of the high plains, and it's almost dry as a bone pretty much.
Interestingly, I've got this map titled Future Rainfall, but I should say that's not entirely accurate. This should more correctly be titled Future Precipitation.
Right.
I do think, given the cold air that's going to be in place across New England and even parts of the Appalachians, I would suspect some of that precipitation is going to fall in the form of that 4-letter S word.
Yep. We don't like to hear it around here. I do.
Hey, there's a lot of folks around here that do I think I'm an outlier. I don't necessarily love it. Interestingly, so let's say your wish comes true, and a lot of folks out in Arkansas, their wish comes true that we do get a huge snow. You have what's called snow to liquid ratios. And I, as a winter weather lover, I know you're probably the foremost expert, at least in this building, on this. You could have a foot of snow and you'd think, oh, that's going to entirely eliminate the drought.
Right.
Not so fast.
Yes, it kind of depends on, what the temperatures are kind of doing, throughout your profile. And we're not going to get, I guess, too much into the science. Maybe we can tackle that when we actually have snow to forecast. But yeah, you can exactly have, a 10-to-1 ratio, which essentially, we're saying 10 inches of snow for every 1 inch of liquid rain. A lot of people use the 12-to-1 ratio.
Right.
But, if it's colder, you can have as some people call it 20-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 inch of rainfall, since it's so kind of dry, kind of a little bit of a drier air mass, you can get 20 inches of snow with a little bit less liquid water content. That typically happens in January, February, when we get the coldest air so far this winter.
The practical application of that is, if everyone's dreams come true and we do get that foot, a winter wonderland, when it all melts down, it's not 12 inches of liquid rainfall. So even if that's true, it doesn't actually put a dent into the drought. And not to say we're forecasting that at any time. I just want to set expectations that we're in a bad drought. It's going to take a lot of rain to get out of it. When we look into the medium range, so January 21st through the 27th, so starting about 8 days from this week, running through nearly the end of the month, temperature-wise, we'll begin with this. We're seeing the evidence of that trough developing further towards the west that we just saw. And that's reflected in some below average temperatures across most of the northern half of the country. Here locally, it looks like we're at or maybe even slightly above, probably to begin that period. I think no. Once we get a little bit closer, we'll end up seeing those blues drawn further deeper into Arkansas, right? So that's temperature. We know we've probably got some cool-ish air. Minimally, it's going to be at least normal for the last half of January, which is cold, right? Perhaps even though I would suspect we'll end up seeing those temperatures come down and we'll actually see below average temps. But what about precipitation? I think as of the last couple of days, we've been seeing that more favorable weather pattern. And you alluded to this just minutes ago. Now looking at what the Climate Prediction Center has kind of drawn up there, perhaps there is reason to be hopeful in and around Arkansas.
Sure, yeah. I mean, whenever you see, areas of green like that, it gives you hope that maybe you can get maybe not just one, maybe even as many as 2 or 3 little systems that, kind of roll on. Obviously, the question is, can you get cold air that kind of meets up with that system? Would that give us snow? Would that give us rain? I don't really think it matters at this point. We just need some moisture to kind of help out, the drought conditions. But, when you're looking at the precipitation outlook, and I believe this is 8 to 14 days?
This is correct, 8 to 14 days.
8 to 14 days out. You can kind of see in the mid-Mississippi River Valley and into the Ohio River Valley, kind of maybe becoming a little bit more active into the 8 to 14-day stretch.
I like this. This is the most hope we've seen, at least over the last couple of weeks. One thing I will readily admit is we have, at times, had these medium-range signals that did give us a little bit of hope. It didn't happen. Yeah, it was a fake punt, as Joshua would call it. It's not actually going to happen. So we take this with a grain of salt. Pattern recognition is at this point is the best you can do. But this is good. This is certainly favorable for the Delta, Central Arkansas, West Arkansas. It's not the worst outlook, but it certainly could be better. I do want to do this, Noah. I'd like to take a look at the weekend forecast ahead of us across Arkansas. It's going to be a cold one. I think temperatures are going to be in the teens and 20s in the morning, afternoon highs in the low to mid 40s in central and southern Arkansas. Perhaps on Saturday, there's places such as Fayetteville and Mountain Home and Jonesboro that may not even get out of the 30s. So for those that were asking, where is winter? It's here. It's here. It's here. It very well could last a little bit. Sunday's looking a bit warmer, but still rather chilly with highs in the low 40s. Good news is a lot of sunshine out there to get out and enjoy.
Sunshine for sure. Also, we don't have the low temperatures on here, but even the wind chills, especially Sunday morning, might be a little brutal out there.
Let's walk through those.
Yeah, well, especially when we get to the
Sunday morning.
Oh, yikes.
Big yikes. 7 in Fayetteville, 16 in Little Rock, 15 there in Murfreesboro, 18, Monticello, 12 in Searcy, 9 in Jonesboro. That's a chill to the air.
For sure.
Question is now, is that too cold to duck hunt? I don't know. These are those moments you got to start to think. I'm just not quite sure. All right, that's a look of what's ahead in the weather forecast. When we return, we're actually going to be taking a look back. Our next segment coming up is This Week in Arkansas Weather History. Stay with us. We'll be back in just minutes. Welcome back here to the Arkansas Weather Roundup. We've got Joshua Weisel on board with us now. I always love to look back in Arkansas weather history. Number one, I think there's a lot you can learn by just looking back. And number two, it also shows us that a lot of things can change around these parts. So I pulled a little bit of data that I want to walk through with you guys. Beginning on January 12th of 1843. Get this, guys. The temperature, if we want to pull up max 2, fell to 8 above 0 in Fort Smith.
Wow.
Big yikes. 8 above 0. So just 8 degrees. 8 degrees Fahrenheit right there in Fort Smith. We talk about how cold it's going to get over the next several days. A lesson I take away from This Week in Arkansas weather history is that it ain't nothing compared to what it felt like back in 1843. Joshua, I think you align a little bit closer to me when it comes to winter. We don't necessarily love the snow and the frigid cold temperatures. I don't know. What do you feel about 8 above 0?
I tell you, it may be a little bit dramatic, but we've had a couple of days the last couple of years that felt like that. That wasn't necessarily that cold, but I can think of early 2024 or early 2023 for that matter. There's been a couple of those events that felt like that. So maybe not as cold as that, but I can't imagine 8 degrees. That would not be fun.
Can't imagine either. I do want to stay on the 12th of January. This a little bit in more recent history, though. This is the year 2005. Before they switched from the F scale to the EF scale, a tornado actually struck Union County. So that's not far from El Dorado. We're talking far south Arkansas, Junction City. An F3 in January is not common. Unfortunately, it did claim the lives of 2 victims to that tornado there. You know, my lesson to take away from this is severe weather season in Arkansas runs January to December. There's always going to be the potential of severe weather. Of course, there's some months where it's going to be more likely, but even in January, and you can go from the extremes of 8 degrees in Fort Smith to tornadoes taking the lives of 2 people right there in Arkansas. So it always goes to show you being weather aware is really important. We'll move forward to the 13th of January. Interestingly enough, a lot of snow fell on the 13th of January in 1831. This is something that, despite the fact that I am relatively old, I don't remember. Noah, what do you think about that?
That, yeah, I don't think any of us were alive during that time, but wow, 9 to 15, that's more snow than the typical average for the whole winter.
That's right.
For all the areas here, so that's definitely speaking my language. We haven't seen that here. I'm kind of wondering, where is it? That's a lot for sure.
So we talk about the averages there. Of course, the average, I don't recall off the top of my head. I know you're going to.
It's about like 6.5.
I was thinking,
or at least for Northwest Arkansas.
I think River Valley's closer to 3, right?
Right.
That is way above average, but as Joshua will recall last year, we had 2 different events that each event in and of themselves actually far surpassed the annual average. So yeah, the average is something that is like a good baseline, but Mother Nature does what Mother Nature's gonna do, and you know, sometimes you get a whole bunch of snow all at once.
For sure.
I know that sounds exciting. Noah's got a big smile on his face. Okay, Joshua, take this next one.
It looks like the Arctic state, this was the January 16th. It brought lows down to the single digits near 0. Eureka Springs fell to -8.
-8. So we go from Fort Smith at 8 to -8 in Eureka Springs. Wow. I don't think I have ever felt that cold in Arkansas. Now, I have felt -13 in Wisconsin early January several years back, but I've never felt negative temperatures in Arkansas. I've felt negative wind chills, but never actually negative temperatures. We'll go back to January 16th of 2024, so not too long ago. A lot of folks will remember this. It was a cold, bitter Arctic air mass that spilled in. I think this one set some records. It got down to -10 at Drakefield and Fayetteville, -7 in Winslow. And despite the fact that that day we saw a lot of sunshine, it actually never got above the freezing mark. Can you believe that?
That's crazy. Actually, during that cold stretch, obviously it affected Arkansas in a big way with the cold temperatures. I was actually in Iowa during this cold snap, and I believe the high where I was in Iowa, off the top of my head, I think it was like -10 or -15. And me being the crazy winter nut I am, I went outside my hotel room just to experience a -35-degree wind chill.
In a few words, how would you describe -35 wind chill?
Painful.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought it was bad down here because I was outside for like an hour just watching cars not able to like go up the hill with some of that snow with that system. And I can imagine that. I don't envy your experience out there.
Yeah, not too good.
And you know, our field crews and reporters go out into that. So while some of those days are long here in the Weather Center, at least the heat works here. And then we're a little bit more comfortable. Okay, that was a look back in Arkansas's weather history. Of course, in January, you would expect some of those more notable events to be surrounding snow and cold temperatures. Here in Arkansas, we're a very agricultural and farming-centric state. It's one of our biggest drivers of our economy. The same can be said some of our neighboring states. And Joshua, you've been tracking how some of these extreme temperature swings have been impacting some of those operations, huh?
Yeah, and it's really kind of interesting because when we get these warmer, stretches of weather, of course, we all enjoy it just because, there's a lot of people, they're able to get outside. And then when it's, not quite the 70s, but when it's in the 50s, you get the beautiful afternoon, you can just put on the sweater in the evening. It's enjoyable, but we don't typically think about what that means for impacts in terms of wildlife, livestock, even plant life and stuff like that. So when we have these temperature swings like this, while it may feel good, disrupting kind of that natural, drop in the cool temperatures and it's just warm for a long extended period of time, that can disrupt a lot. So here's a look at that story and how this affects livestock in Tennessee.
Hey. So the one was born the 9th of December, the other one was born 20th December, and the other one was born 23rd December.
In the middle of a Tennessee winter, surprisingly on the farm, it's not the cold that's the concern, it's the temperature swings.
Nobody likes to say, oh, I like 20-degree weather, but as far as raising animals, a consistent cold weather is actually more beneficial. Hop in.
Matt Horsman spends his days helping farmers solve problems. Here, he's helping strategize how to care for those new calves this year.
Really dry fall. It's been a pretty dry winter, so we're not building up that moisture level. Yeah. So that's why we don't normally seed in the spring.
Most of Tennessee is in a drought right now. I wanted to know how our mild, dry conditions are affecting the agriculture industry. What happens on the farm doesn't stay there. It affects food prices, jobs, and local economies.
And so if you're not at a full kind of moisture level going to summer, you're only depleting it even faster. So we get into drought conditions a lot quicker in the summer.
So far, Horsman says the spring-like temperatures haven't caused major issues for pasture plantings. But there have been reports of animals getting sick.
We get health issues, especially on the cattle side. We will see a lot of respiratory issues with those 40-degree swings, high humidity rain, and then all of a sudden you get into really wet periods.
With Tennessee's weather constantly changing, he's always glad when farmers ask questions or ask him to visit.
I'm glad we got it scheduled for today rather than what looks like coming in tomorrow.
Yeah. In Brentwood, Hannah McDonald, News Channel 5.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. So, of course, when it's dry and it's cold, we think of, how that impacts, cows having food and stuff like that. But one of the interesting things to me was just that temperature swing, how that affects like viruses and illnesses for them as well. So, hopefully for this portion of the country, we can get some rain just because we're all suffering. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that they would prefer it to either be way hot or way cold, but the swings is what really got them going. As I was watching that, I was reminded, of course, Arkansas, a big poultry state. It's also duck season, which it's like the second time I've worked that in. There's probably going to be another time, I'm sure. Bird flu actually increases because the lack of rain. It's a lot like COVID or the flu. When you get a whole bunch of people bottled up in one room and one person has it, it spreads pretty quickly. Well, because it's so dry all across Arkansas, all these waterfowl are coming. They're congregating on the one little body of water they can find, and they're just spreading the germs. So it's like wild that weather actually has a significant role in the health of livestock and wildlife. And of course, we've seen a few situations already in South and Central Arkansas where that avian flu has been transmitted to livestock. And unfortunately, that's a very costly thing.
Yeah, not good.
Not good at all. Hey, we've talked a lot about the cold air. It's January after all. I want to do a little bit of trivia with you. If you want to pull up our trivia question of the day, this is where we're going to work in meteorologist Danny Cassidy. The question this week from Danny Cassidy: what is the coldest temperature ever recorded in Arkansas history? Your options are A, 19 below zero, B, 24 below, C, 29 degrees below, or D, 34 degrees. I'll bring back in Noah and Joshua real quick. You guys want to take a guess?
I'll let Joshua go first.
What a generous gentleman you are.
That's going to be a tough one. I don't know why. I'm thinking like negative 29 just because some of those dips in the polar vortex in northeast Arkansas, I feel like that's typically when, I don't think it's ever hit the 30s, but I think it is probably a little bit, cooler than.
Okay, so Josh was going with C, 29 below zero, and you actually added a bonus. You said where you think it actually occurred, what part of the state. So, Annie up, Noah. What do you choose? You can choose the same answer.
I was just about to say, before I let Joshua go first, I was going to say minus 29.
Okay.
I feel like that's a good guess.
Like a good middle ground.
Right. I think, it's a good middle ground. So we'll see if we're right, or we'll see if we know what we're talking about.
Well, let's see if you want to qualify your answer with a geographic part of the state in which you think it happened. I didn't ask you to do that. This guy did.
Thanks, Joshua. I'm going to guess Eureka Springs.
Eureka Springs. All right. Let's bring in Danny with the answer.
Well, back to that weather trivia question. Again, that question was, what is the coldest temperature ever recorded in Arkansas history? And the choices were 19 below, 24 below, 29 below, or 34 below. Now, if you didn't have any idea, you may have just scribbled in C because that's kind of usually an optimal choice, right? Well, this time around, you guessed, you would be correct. 29 below, of course, that's Fahrenheit, is the coldest temperature ever recorded in Arkansas history. The date If you guessed this, I'll give you my whole future mortgage. It was February 13th of 1905. That was in Gravette in northwest Benton County. And of course, as you may expect, it was not only chilly that day in Gravette, but also across the entire state. This is the temperatures from that morning on February 13th, 1905. The light pink here is 25 to 30 below, and you can see far northern Benton County as well as Carroll County showed that very cold air. The hot pinks here are more about 10 to 20 below, kind of closer to the purple, or about 0 to 10 below, and then the blues here, as you go to the southeast there in southeast and eastern Arkansas, are about 0 to 10 degrees. So it was quite the stark contrast of lows. But as you notice there, very chilly for much of the center and northern part of the state. So for those that were back in 1905, February 13th, it was a chilly one with many well below zero, including Gravette recording the coldest temperature ever at 29 below.
In Gravette, Arkansas. So you were close to the Eureka Springs. You were on the complete opposite side of the state,
no.
but you both got the answer correct. Did you know ahead of time? Did Danny, did you look over Danny's shoulder when he was putting this together?
I actually did not.
Okay.
So
I wouldn't expect you to admit it anyway.
I slipped Danny a 20. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, Joshua had actually no idea. This is a good guess. I don't want to say lucky guess because we know what we're talking about somewhat. But
days in school, just scribbling in C like you mentioned.
Okay, we got about a minute left, so I want to end on this quick question: short term or long term? What is on your radar, so to speak? What are you tracking?
I'd say probably short term. Well, I guess forget short term. I'll go long term. I think probably a return to some more winter-like conditions. Maybe a bit more an active pattern. When I say active, talking about a little bit more rain and or snow, depending on if we can get the cold air to meet up. We'll of course, watch that in the long term.
Takes that perfect combination. Joshua, real quick.
Probably kind of short and long term. Just the models have been going back and forth between we're going to get these little waves where it's below average and then it warms up. And then I think we're going to continue that pretty much through the rest of the month. And then maybe we'll have to see what happens going into February.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I'm going to go with long term. And for me, I've been tracking La Nina and the impact it's had on Arkansas going into fall and this winter. That's quickly collapsing. El Nino likely to emerge sometime the middle part of this year. What does that mean for Arkansas weather? You'll find out right here on the Arkansas Weather Roundup on our next edition next week. In the meantime, for more in-depth forecast analysis, local current conditions, all of our webcams, you can join us over on the Weather Impact 24/7 stream. For meteorologist Noah Simmons, Joshua Weisel, myself, and Danny, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Arkansas Weather Roundup.